I hereby call this meeting of the King George County Service Authority Board of Directors to order. Electronic participation is encouraged, and pursuant to the governor's emergency orders, social distancing shall be maintained for all physically present. If you choose to be physically present, you will be screened by authorized staff for signs and symptoms of illness. Based on the results of that screening, certain physical attendees may be denied entry. The following members are physically present.
Alan Parker, physically present.
James Morris, physically present.
Kathy Bender, physically present.
Annie Kupka, physically present. The following members are participating through electronic and remote means pursuant to the rules previously adopted by this board and through the governor's budget.
Carrie Cleveland, participating remotely.
Thank you, Ms. Cleveland. I direct the clerk to include this statement and any statement of remotely participating board members to be memorialized in the minutes. We'll now open the floor for public comment. Is there anyone here in the audience for public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Dines, do we have anyone online for public comment? Thank you, sir. I'll now close public comment. We'll move on to expenditure and revenue update. Mr. Weekly.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tonight, it's expenditure and revenue updates, and we did have some time to go back through to take a look at payroll, thanks to Finance and Patty for providing that great feedback. So, Mr. Dines, if you'll start with the summary 3%. Is that the one you have up, sir? All right, thank you. So your workbook file that I provided shortly ago, you'll see tabs for revenue 3%, revenue 4%, summary 3%, and summary 4%. What Mr. Dines has up on the screen right now is summary 3%. The summary tabs are the expenditure tabs. So what those percentages provide is if the board were to consider merit increases. I brought two proposals for the board to consider tonight. One being up to a 3% merit increase, and then the other being up to a 4% increase. The reason why I'm using the term up to, because since my tenure, we have always done a performance evaluation. It's not based on tenure. So we use the standard forms that the county HR provides. And there's basically a range if an employee is non-satisfactory up through satisfactory, above satisfactory, and then your highest range is extremely satisfactory. So what I base that on is in ranges. So starting with the average, if you're meeting criteria and going up, is how those percentages would break down. So with that being said, I want to talk about impact. If you were to consider increases, and that looks at everything from the salary increase, which would include FICA, VRS, and all the other disability and so forth that goes along with that. So the impact to the budget, if you were to consider the 3%, is $39,868.13. I'll go ahead and cover the 4% as well. That impact would be $53,157.51. So it is an increase, but we have around 28 employees. So obviously, if you were looking at a school system budget or even the county as a whole, more employees, those numbers go up. What I wanted to recommend to the board tonight would with their blessing, is a 4% merit increase. And the way that this is structured, and by all means, if you have any detailed questions, we certainly can bring in Ms. Hahn and Ms. Cobb. But what that allows is not all of our employees are July 1 employees. We've had some turnover in wastewater and some other areas. We have two recent hires. So how that breaks down is that funding is not all applied July 1. So that's why that looks a little light, if you will. If everyone was starting July 1, that number naturally would be higher. But that is the overall impact when you're looking at those who will receive merits July 1, and then You'll have some that say maybe in March of next year, they'll have a percentage of that based on those months in next year's budget. So, Mr. Dines, if you'll go to the revenue, you can choose either one, 3% or 4%. It's fine either way. One, depending if the board so chooses to approve of a merit increase, and those are two options. The board has the final option. I did provide you with the balanced budget using the 3 or 4%. So if you went between either tab, what I did with the difference, the expenditures prior had a transfer or reserve for fund balance. Last year we had programmed $531,000. The first round when we sat down here, I believe our first work session, I had about $172,000 programmed to that because we weren't sure what we would do with the difference between the favorability of revenues and expenditures. So with the 3% and 4% options, we put those remaining funds to cash reserve. So with the 4%, we are looking to put the reserve to fund balance at $366,570. That's a difference of $65,000 from last year. If you chose to provide for a 3% merit option, the fund balance or the reserve for fund balance would be $379,859, a difference of around $152,000. Even if you would consider the 4%, I will tell you with last year's outstanding year, our debt service coverage is required to be at a 1.0. We finished at over a 2.0. So we met our target. We're on track this year. I know we have programmed $531,820 to go to fund. I can tell you on connections, I think, Patty, we're at what, 70 on the year?
70 full service connections.
70 full service connections. So when we budget, we have that 50 full service connection, and that's based on averaging over the past few years. So I feel like there are monies there, even though we're uncertain with the economy right now. I believe we have everything covered. Again, we budget at 98% collection. We don't assume 100% collection. And so it is a balanced budget, but we still are putting money towards the reserves. At the end of the day, when the board gets to a point where they feel they're comfortable before we go to advertisement, I talked to Davenport the other day, who's our financial consultant. We're going to run the numbers through them just to make sure that debt service coverage is proper, and if they're comfortable with the funds that we are programming to our reserve fund balance. So I don't have a lot more to present tonight other than recommending the 4%. I know this is the first you're digesting this information tonight, but the funds are there, and we're not cutting corners on any project. So, Madam Chair, that's really all I had for the board tonight for consideration. I'd be happy to take any questions or explain any further details.
Thank you, Mr. Weekly. Can you tell us just so we put it out there, I think you sent all of us an email, but if you can recap for us, you had a conversation with Davenport about the refinance next month and what the cost savings would be for that. Can we make sure we go over that too?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we did get positive news that VDH and DEQ both agreed to the rate resets. Those were on the two loans that Kyle with Davenport presented that information. I think it was 2 meetings ago. We don't have that schedule yet, but based on what was presented as a possible rate reset, I believe it was around $23,000 annual savings. We will know those conditions as we approach our April the 6th meeting. If the documents are ready, then legal and finance has a chance to review that. We'll bring that before the board of directors to approve. I think there'll actually be, Madam Chair, bond counsel will require the board of supervisors to approve as well, which is normal with our financials. It's this whole moral obligation they call it. So there will be a $23,000 reduction in debt service. So on your expenditure sheets, that'll be a reduction in that bottom portion when it comes to debt service. So 23,000, that's not showing up in here because we don't have that in hand yet, but we do anticipate that at the minimum of being a reduction in our debt service by 23,000.
Very good. Do you have any preliminary data? I know you all did a first round of the debt relief for the customers that were in arrears from the coronavirus funds, and you and I spoke briefly before this meeting started, and that kind of relief is also included in the new bill that was passed recently. Do you have, did the majority of the customers that were in arrears get taken care of? Do you still have an outstanding balance, and what possibly those monies could be?
So we have, I know, roughly, I want to say just under $80,000 remaining of the first round. So there are customers still remaining that have that balance or have balances. Our approach to the next round, and we'll probably look to gear up again, if not by the end of this month, by April, because the bills just went out, I think the 15th of this month. So it'll give us a chance to really see, one, who did not receive, because it does allow for you to apply it twice now. It used to be if you received it once, you don't receive it again. So we want to look and see if anyone meets criteria that has not received it yet, and then circle back to those who would still qualify. They still have to go through the customer attestation sheets that's required, which also goes on file with Ms. Hahn's office. So I know we have around 80,000 remaining. Any new round of funding, that definitely is not in here. It would certainly do that. The county is the fiscal agent. So we would just treat that as, I believe there's a GL now, Ms. Hahn, for those funds. So when the county receives that, there will be a GL line created in the service authority's budget. And basically we would send over, it's basically a worksheet file of those who qualify, along with a notebook that has the hard copy documentation. So 80,000 roughly remaining. How many customers that affects, I don't have that on me tonight. We certainly can run a report tomorrow and try to get an idea of who's remaining. I know that was a huge help, having those funds. Caroline County, you may have read in the paper not too long ago, went back to look to do service disconnections again. There is a provision out there. If your operating revenues, the arrearages exceed 1%, greater than 1% of your operating revenues, you can apply to basically waive that moratorium on disconnections. And for us, I believe that's around $68,000. So we didn't want to take that approach. We know folks are hurting. If we can apply, thank you, Ms. Barker. If we can apply CARES Act funding for that and not just come out the gate, I'm not saying anything about a neighboring jurisdiction. That's just been my approach. If the board of directors wants to take a different approach, but that's why I have not brought to you a recommendation to exercise that 1% threshold, especially since there seems to be new round of funding come. So we will look to apply the remaining funds, and when the new funds are received, and I'm not sure what that timeline, if that's July 1 or what they're tracking on that. I know we've had some conversation with Davenport, who's also eyeing that with us. And once those are, you'll get some type of letter like we did last time. I'm not sure if there's an application. Last time we had to apply for those funds. but Ms. Hahn and I will work together on that and bring that to the board once those funds have been identified. So 80,000 remaining. We'll look to apply those for the next rounds of bills, which just were received this week, and then kind of regroup to see what that total number of remaining customers is left. Without giving names, and I know Mr. I think Bennett or someone had asked a question prior about there was a big customer. That big customer has benefited with the CARES Act funded, so which is good. That's what it should be applied for. Yes, ma'am.
All right, very good. I'll open it for questions. Mr. Parker, would you like to start, sir?
Yeah, just a couple questions. So I know we got minimum wages rising, and I know you said before that there's a few employees that are at the minimum wage. Was that, does the 4% get those, the 4% merit, would that also get those employees back up to where they need to be on the minimum wage front?
Are you applying that to
I'm trying to ask basically, was that figured into the overall cost increase? I know before you had set a cost, some increase for people that were making the minimum wage that's going up, right? Now we're looking at 4%. Did you take a look at the?
There was no analysis. If that's referring to like the $15 minimum wage, is that the criteria?
Well, I think I think in Virginia it's stepping up yearly till 2026.
It does step up, and I believe is that $12. I think it's going to initially.
It actually goes to $9.50 an hour on May 1st. And after that, January 1st, that's the time it's supposed to switch. It'll go to, I believe it's 11.
Okay.
And then each year on January 1st until it gets to $15.
So thank you very much. So we're covered, and forgive me, I was tracking the $12 number, so I'm ahead of that. So we are fine with that criteria. We are always looking, whether it's, a minimum wage, trying to get you to a living wage, even from a competitive standpoint. As you know, in our business, it's licensed water or sewer, so you got to be competitive. But we meet that threshold fine. We'll have to keep eyes on that for the $15. There appears to be, and I don't hand out, I've got a sheet over here, obviously, I don't give to you all that has that hourly. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 individuals. If that $15 criteria was here today, there would be 5 individuals that we would need to do, at least over $1.20 an hour to get them to that benchmark. So we'll keep an eye on that. Thank you for raising that, sir. But in this round, we were kind of looking at market, but also looking at wages overall, and trying to get those up. We've had some improvements in some areas. Some of our recent new hires that we've been able to take advantage of. We have high hopes. They're already paying dividends on those new higher salaries than what we have traditionally hired for. We've lost a couple to other jurisdictions too, more so on the wastewater side, just where we start off at. But the 4%, it will meet the criteria that you first asked of, sir.
And the only other question I have is, have you ever run an analysis on the cost of turnover, cost of employee turnover?
We have not at this time. That would probably be a good thing to do. Definitely, if I ever go to approach the board from a compensation study standpoint, we have not done that at this time, sir. But I think it's AWWA that has a survey going right now, so we'll participate in that. And it's kind of good to be membership of that. We may be able to get some cost analysis, but it's only good as those participate. So we hope folks that are in our surrounding jurisdiction participate in that survey. They'll kind of do some of that legwork. But we have not at this time. I think there was a study done by, was it Greenway back in 2017? I believe there was a compensation study done countywide, which include the service authority. I'd have to check with Amanda, and I probably shouldn't even mention that without having that in front of me tonight, but I have seen a study, 2017. So I know there was a study, and that's been a few years ago, but we're going to look to see, hopefully the AWWA, and that's American Waterworks Association, we're a member of that, will be able to provide that information.
No more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Mr. Morris.
Mr. Weekly, the 3 or 4%, how does that bring us in line with the surrounding jurisdictions? Obviously, this is we're in competition with them of keeping people versus losing people. And are we at the bottom of the region, the middle of the region?
So some of our surrounding counties like Stafford in the last year or two did some compensation increase. So prior to that, we're definitely above. I'd say we're competitive with them. When you analyze that, you have to look at who's licensed and who's not. I would say those who don't have license, who's been with us, how do I say this? Who have more years of service, who haven't obtained certain certifications, or maybe they're at the first certification, their compensation is okay for years of service and the certification they have. If you were hiring somebody that went gangbusters, trainee, and was just class 4, class 3, all the way up to class 1, the starting salary, I mean, at some point when I bring you an incentive program, it's going to lay that out. And, the starting salary should probably be $3,000 to $4,000 higher than what we are right now, easily. And that's starting trainee level, and you just build that salary, that basic same wage, into the class 4, 3, 2, and 1. But I can't forget about other employees who are not water and wastewater licensed. So the plan will be to come back if it's a journeyman license in plumbing or electrical, or if they maybe even have a master's license. Include some CDL in there as well. We require at least a minimum class B with some of our equipment with a tanker endorsement. Question comes up, what if I get a class A? Hey, go for it. There's some type, but we need to get those policies in stone. We just don't have those at this time. But I can tell you, in analyzing what I just mentioned earlier, $3,000 to $4,000 easily we need to up salaries for those licensed positions.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bender?
I have a question on the tower lease. I know that we had a lease for with KGI. Is that was supposed to end in February, correct? Are we going to gain any income from that lease now?
Yes. So, Mr. Dines, can you scroll down? The revenue sheet's fine that you have up, sir. Can you scroll down to the bottom of the first section there? Go back up. It'll have red text, and it'll say tower lease. Keep scrolling up. Stop right there, please. So if you look at just above total charges for services, the last item says tower lease fees. That's where the $24,000 shows up. It's $2,000 a month for the two assets of Arnold's Corner Tower and the Oakland Park Tower.
So those will be in this year's budget?
Yes, ma'am. We have actually started receiving those checks, and finance has set up a GL code, so we're receiving that. So that's new revenue, and I'll just recap since we're talking revenue. The item that's not there that we pulled out because we're not sure when we're coming out of this local declared emergency is the penalties, and that would traditionally have about an $80,000 revenue line item, and that's been pulled out. So, but yes, the tower lease is in there. And one that I didn't count because we don't have a contract, because they got to present it. I got to give it to Matt, then give it to you all. I guess they're still, I get lost. Are they Sprint or T-Mobile now? There was a merger.
I think it's T-Mobile now.
Okay,
yeah.
T-Mobile, thank you. They are, well, Sprint was originally looking at our Monmouth water tower. And then the merger happened, and they said, well, we got to take care of all of our other commitments. We're not doing anything new. So they have since came back from the merger, and we met with their engineering and a lot of their construction folks out on site. So we didn't put that in here because we didn't want to assume it, but it is a possibility we would have another tower lease fee in the future.
Right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Cleveland, do you have any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Hi, Mr. Weekly. So I guess what I wanted to get some clarity on, and maybe some perception, since this is my first time on this board, is what is sort of normal for your merit increases year after year? Is it based on if you make a profit or not, or how does that work typically for you guys?
Very, very good question. So I'm coming into my third budget cycle we're in now. And I believe the first year we did 2%. I believe it was. Last year, it was up to 3% merit, 1% COLA. And this year I'm recommending of the two options, 4% no COLA. So very good question. I basically look at affordability. And with all due respect, I look at our county partners, which is the county. That was a tough conversation I had with the former administrator, with tough decisions. Our budget and the county budget is different. And initially there was no merits put in on one side and we were asking for it on ours. So I weigh all that out. But yes, we do have to look at our revenues, our affordability. Certainly we're doing rate increases to our customers. I'm sensitive to that. So I look at our priorities and making sure we're meeting that. So, that's making sure we're collecting revenue, but that's also making sure there's many projects, as you saw this year within water and sewer, major upgrades, whether it's SCADA or pump stations. So we got to make sure we're taking care of our compliance and our obligations, which in some cases is an employee benefit. You're giving them a good work environment, making sure the equipment's up to date, or you're upgrading. So there's some tangible value there, at least my opinion. So we look at all those things to see, can we afford it? I know this year you look at gas prices, what's going to happen there. I don't know what's going on with the power company and their rate structures. So we factor all those things in, and definitely sensitive to customer increases, and see if we can afford that. So that's been my strategy, ma'am, since being here. And I will continue unless the board has other advice on that. We do take that every year is a request that I can certainly put up recommendations, but as being a former elected official, I can assure you I can appreciate the tough decisions you have to make. And it's not a given. Merits are not a given, even in a local government setting. But that is my mindset, ma'am, and thought process when I'm putting together any consideration for merit increase.
Thank you for that. Just one more question. And I know that you had mentioned the county. I sort of was going to go there as well. And I know that it's not related, but I'm curious because I know that they are in the budget session right now. If any of the members know what's being proposed for the county associates.
So, Ms. Cleveland, right now we're not there yet on the county side of the house. I'll just say we have a much larger budget, $85 million budget to deal with. And we just had our third meeting last night. And so we have not gotten to that point yet. So I couldn't begin to tell you. The interim county administrator, Mr. Kusenberry, will be providing us a recommended budget on March 31st, I believe, is when that will come through. So right now it's too soon to tell, quite honestly.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
And I can add, though, I believe last year on the county side, we chose to delay implementation for county employees, but once we were able to shift, and Ms. Binder, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we were eventually in late summer, early fall, we were able to use some of the coronavirus money to cover the public safety payroll, which then freed up money in the general fund, which then we were able to use that to eventually do an increase for the county employees, for the employees on the county side.
Yes,
And
that was
Ms.
at the.
Cobb is shaking her head yes. Did I get that all right? I thought that was how we did that. So even if it looks like maybe early on we can't do something right away, we do have a feeling that there's potential for about $5 million coming to the county for a variety of uses, including possibly the service authority and the schools and all sorts of local needs. So I'm optimistic that even if we can't do it right away, maybe eventually we'll get around to everybody. Did you have any other questions, Ms. Cleveland?
No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right then, Mr. Weekly.
So that's all I had, Madam Chair, for my budget presentation. Determine on where we go next. It's the pleasure of the board. If you need some time to digest this, or if you know where you're at tonight on percentages, that will allow me to present a balanced budget. Right now, revenues sit at $6,990,077. So what I did was, with either scenario, 3 or 4%, we just plug those numbers into the salary portions, everything FICA and all considered. And then the delta between revenues, expenditures, any remaining went to the cash reserve, which either way is an increase. And again, I'll just mention the impact. A 3% is just under $40,000. A 4% is just over $53,000, which I believe is less than 1% of the overall budget. So we're meeting our cash reserves. We're doing a lot of projects this year. So my recommendation would be the 4%, but the board makes a decision.
So I'd like to poll the members, not necessarily with regard to whether you're ready, with what you would prefer tonight, but just let's start with whether you're ready to make a decision tonight or not. Mr. Parker?
I could make a decision.
Mr. Morris?
I can make a decision.
Ms.
I'm
Bender?
good. I'm good.
Yes. Mrs. Cleveland?
I'm not sure if I could make a decision right now. No.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Weekly, what moving forward how would we, if we met again, how does this affect your timeline if we don't have a recommendation for you this evening?
We're still doing good on time. Initially, when we put forth the budget schedule for you all for us to meet and have these discussions, we laid out 4 budget work sessions. So there is another one scheduled next Thursday on the 25th. And at that time, there wouldn't be any new information unless you had a request. It would just be basically getting feedback from the board. That's really the last portion, other than any favorabilities on the rate resets that we talked about earlier. Those will be the only change in variables. And then again, it helps us to determine, because that's part of expenditure, and then how much are we adjusting on the revenue side, which basically is just making sure the cash reserves is either increasing, at whatever percentage that you choose.
So, Mrs. Cleveland, would you be ready for next Thursday's meeting to make a decision?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, and is everyone still available to meet next Thursday? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes? All right then. So I think we're gonna press pause and slow down and think about it for a week, if you don't mind. I know it would be lovely to not meet next Thursday if we didn't have to, but we do need to do our due diligence and take our time and consider this, and so that's exactly what we'll do.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, indeed. All right. Is there any other business to come before the Board of Directors? I will entertain. Actually, I do want to say something before I entertain a motion to adjourn. Last Friday, Senator Tim Kaine joined us at our YMCA weekly Friday vaccination clinic, sponsored by Rappahannock Area Health District. And one of the things that he mentioned to us was the funding in the latest bill with regard to funds for infrastructure needs for broadband and water sewer. And I know Mr. Weekly is tracking that, and I know you said you've already had some conversations with Davenport. I know you'll stay on top of that, because if there's anything we can do to take advantage of that, to the benefit of our bottom line, we need to make sure and make that a priority. So, all right, with that, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn to Thursday, March 25th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m., Company 1 headquarters.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion carries. This meeting is hereby adjourned to the next regularly scheduled meeting on March 25th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. That meeting may be held by electronic means and/or remote participation only, and may be closed to the public being physically present. All citizens are encouraged to participate in advance or during the meeting by electronic